Hi, everyone, and welcome to JSA TV and JSA Podcasts, where we are covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in global connectivity, real estate, and the networks within. I'm Barb Mitchell with JSA, joining you today here where we're exploring the interconnected Canadian and US markets with an additional focus on the ever-expanding channel ecosystem. I'm joined today by Robin Constantine, SVP of Global Sales at BCE Global USA, as well as Michael Wilmot, Consul and Senior Trade Commissioner at the Consulate General of Canada in Los Angeles. Robin, Michael, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Can you let's start a little bit, and I'm going to start with you, Robin, if that's okay. Just tell us a little bit about you and some of your key areas of focus.
Definitely. Again, thank you very much for having us this afternoon. So my name is Robin Constantine. I run the sales organization for BC Global and as well the business development teams at the BC Global and that's within Canada and as well for the rest of the world. So I have that responsibility for BC for the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years. Feels like sometimes like more, but more or less 10 to 12 years.
Right. Time flies, right?
Sure
and
does.
Michael?
As my title suggests, Senior Trade Commissioner here at the Consulate General of Canada. So my role is to lead the team that promotes trade, investment, and innovation between Canada and Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada.
So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to stay with you, Michael, if that's okay, just for a minute, just to talk about the relationship with Canada and the US, obviously one of the largest trading relationships in the world. So many US companies doing business in Canada. Can you talk about that, but also talk to us a little bit about the role of foreign direct investment in Canada and any growth trends and insights related to that you could share?
Sure, happy to do so. I mean, Canada and the US together anchor the most competitive and resilient economic region in the world. Over 2.5 billion US dollars a day cross the Canada-US border. And Canada is the top US customer. Canada buys more from Canada Canada buys more from the US than China, Japan, and Germany combined. And for 48 states, Canada is one of their top three markets. I think the exception is just Hawaii and Louisiana. So again, a lot of bilateral trade, a lot of economic integration between Canada and the United States. And that bears true in foreign direct investment as well. I think Canada is the third largest investor in the United States, and the US is the largest investor in Canada. And again, it speaks to that economic integration where we like to say we like to make things together. There's supply chains across the border where you have goods passing through many stages. The automotive sector is a good example where automotive parts might cross the border 7 times before they reach into a final vehicle. So again, whether it's agriculture, energy, automotive, life sciences, many different industries, there's a strong economic integration. And I think it creates a strong foundation and a stable economic environment that makes Canada an attractive place for US companies to do business.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Robin, can you speak to BC Global USA's perspective on this growth? And actually, if you wouldn't mind also just adding how you're positioned to help support this amazing growth.
Definitely. Well, to Michael's point, I mean, all the macro indicators that Michael just talked to us about is clearly what we're seeing as well for many years, having been an actor working very closely with the US companies that are having businesses in Canada. When you think about that 2.5 billion per day in terms of transactions that are going on, a lot of that means communications. How headquarters American companies that have either plants, offices, stores, or even strategic partners, to Michael's point before, in terms of how certain verticals such as the automotive industry are working today before that final product gets to market. All this is all intertwined together. So BCE/Bell Canada has been extremely active on making sure that through our networks, we're able to provide that connectivity to those thousands of companies that have these offices within Canada. So we've been extremely very active with a lot of our American partners through the years, and obviously channels today, how we work with the channel market to open up that market to them and educate them on that great opportunity that we all have here.
Can you expand a little bit just on the trends you're seeing as it relates to specific verticals? I mean, are there particular verticals that are growing more than others, or that are being more impacted by some of this?
Yeah, I would say there's like legacy verticals and they're emerging verticals, and even within the legacy verticals, we just talked about automotive. Now there is a net new vertical emerging from emerging from that. What is that? It's the electric vehicle, with the investments being done on in Canada in terms of net new plants. We can talk about the Volkswagen plant that's opening in Southern Ontario, or Nordvolt that's opening up in just southwest of Montreal. These are all net new emerging companies that are coming up with electric as its foundation, and again to supply the Canadian, but as well the U.S. market. So that is one that is booming, not only for these companies, but as well all of the ecosystem that's related to that. Obviously, we all talk about it, but we are seeing it more and more, and we're using it more and more, and that'd be artificial intelligence, machine learning. These are very hot verticals that are emerging in Canada, which have, again, big ties with the United States. And that is itself needs tons of connectivity as well to tie these technologies together and so forth. So we're seeing tons of investments in Canada, and again, it's feeding both sides of the Canadian-U.S. border. So these are just some of them that are emerging at a rapid pace, and again, works very well with the existing infrastructure that we have today, and the economy that is intertwined between the United States and Canada.
Michael, I'd like to turn it to you for a minute and just talk a little bit. I think you have such an interesting perspective and vantage point, I think, just being able to comment on the future of Canada within the global context.
Sure.
And if you wouldn't mind chatting a little bit about that with us, but also what's driving this growth to the U.S.-Canada trade relationship.
Sure. That's a big question, but I think Canada's well placed in many ways going forward with a global climate of uncertainty when it comes to business. Just to pick up on what Robin mentioned, like on batteries, Canada just in February, according to Bloomberg, surpassed China as the number one supplier of electric battery supply chain components to the United States. So that's again, speaking of those trends he mentioned. In energy, we are each other's largest supplier of all forms of energy, whether it's oil, natural gas, clean electricity, uranium. So again, strong integration there as well. But yeah, on terms of global trends, again, you see headwinds in terms of open and free markets. There's a tendency for companies now in dealing with global uncertainty to pull back supply chains due to supply chain disruptions following the pandemic. Also, more trade barriers emerging between certain countries. Between Canada, U.S., and Mexico, the USMCA, which was re-signed just a few years ago, has resulted in a 25% increase in trade between all our three countries. And again, that speaks to companies looking to have their supply chains closer to home to be able to serve their core markets, focusing on stability and focusing, of course, on innovation as well. And to pick up on what Robin mentioned about AI, Canada was the first country in the world to have a national AI strategy. Some of the founders of AI are Canadian and very active in areas of machine learning and data science. We see that too in areas like in cybersecurity and in terms of the venture capital ecosystem per capita, second only to the United States in terms of amount of venture capital invested in startups. And of course, a global talent pool. Again, strong technologists, engineers available in Canada. The OECD, Canada has the highest rate of post-secondary graduates out of any of the OECD members. And that translates into having talent. Also, our immigration system favors strong background in skilled occupations, including software engineers, for example. So again, the ability for companies to bring their talent to Canada to work on R&D and new innovation, that's a strong driver as well. And then, of course, talking about taxes, Canada has some of the lowest effective marginal tax rates for R&D and R&D intensive industries, between a combination of tax credits for R&D as well as accelerated decelerations for capital purchase for manufacturing, for example. So again, strong environment, strong fundamentals that make it an attractive place to do business in a global climate of uncertainty going forward.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's it's, sometimes we hear of some of these things, especially about Canada and our amazing talent pool, which is so important as, the ongoing demands globally from that perspective, even just so good to hear it and be reminded of it, I think. And I'm Robin, do you have anything you want to add to that? And secondly, I would love to see sort of how BC Global USA is
Yeah.
positioned within this.
Well, it's nice to hear that, to your point, Barb, and Michael's right. So we've been, as I said previously, we've been active in the U.S. market for many years. So what Michael is describing, we're seeing it in real life, right? Headquartered companies that are in the United States that are looking at Canada for, the supply chain, or just distributed more and more of their products within Canada, and using Canada as that platform as well to export to other countries as well, towards Europe as an example. So we've been seeing this at least for a bit. I've been here for 10 to 11 years, and clearly we've seen this more and more as we deal with a lot of big U.S. Service providers, integrators, value-added resellers that have and service their customers in the United States, but as well their plants and offices in Canada. So our job, I would say in the last 24 months or so with the team at BC Global was really about how do we tap in to this net new opportunity that's being created within the US market, and that is the channels, and how we can make sure that we do an education on Canada with the help, obviously, of some of the work that Michael's doing through the consulate. How do we ensure that people are aware, the channel is aware of the Canadian market, but mostly about its big opportunity? So that's what we've been doing over the last 24 months in terms of overall investments on the education front. Because we really think that there's a major market to be tapped by the channel market. And obviously, we just want to be part of that, about that whole storyline going forward.
Thank you to mentioning the markets as well. I mean, Canada is the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all other G7 countries. 51 countries altogether, if you count the members of the European Union, and covering over $1.8 trillion in trade. So it's and over half the world's consumers. So it's a significant advantage for companies who want to access global markets to consider using Canada as a platform to do so.
Oh, perfect. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you. That was perfect wrap up. And I want to just thank you both, for your time today. I feel like we could have multiple of these conversations. Maybe we will. Hopefully we will. But in the meantime, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today to JSA TV. See you next time.